In today's session, we would be covering on the first aspect with respect to something called as real-time data streaming. In case, if you all remember, with respect to the Microsoft Fabric aspect, we had seen that Microsoft Fabric consists of a data factory experience, which includes data pipeline and data flow Gen 2, data engineering experience, which comprises of notebooks, and those are based on Spark engines. Then you have data warehousing that leverages the T-SQL functionality. Data science is for advanced aspect. Power BI is like your Azure Analysis Service or an OLAP system or the semantic models. Data activator is the one that we saw with respect to alerts or to activate certain aspects post an alert. Then there is something called as real-time intelligence. Now the real-time intelligence is for real-time data streaming and analytics. And how do we manage that aspect? In today's world, wherein we do get data in real time, the best cases with respect to IoT devices, IoT hub, wherein at traffic, at highways, correct? There are IoT devices to identify the speed at which someone is driving. So, and then there are corresponding images that are being captured. And you know, correct, in highways, the amount of or the number of the quantity of vehicles that travels is a significant amount. And you need real-time data in order for you to grasp the sense of how much traffic congestion or another aspects can do happen. So real-time analytics is the need of the hour today. So on that aspect, in Azure PaaS, you have Azure Stream Analytics, Event Hub, and Azure Service Bus for managing the streaming aspect. In Google Cloud, you have PubSub, Google PubSub as a publisher and subscriber for such real-time aspect. But there you do have to do certain amount of coding in order for you to receive and manage that streaming data. But Microsoft provides us with a low-code, no-code way of managing the streaming data. And let's take a look with respect to how. So, in my workspace, if you see, there is real-time analytics as well. Correct? Now, I can directly go from the real-time, or imagine that if you do not have this functionality here, you would see a ellipsis is here. Click on more. And once you click on more, you would be able to see the real-time aspect. For certain folks, they are not able to see it in the left pane. So for that, you have to click on the ellipsis and there you would get the real-time functionality. So click on the real-time functionality. Now, what all different sources or what all different streaming sources as of today are supported by Microsoft Fabric? Let's take a look. So first is Microsoft sources. When I say Microsoft sources, these are inbuilt Microsoft Azure PaaS on IaaS, etc. sources. One is our event grid. If you all remember, we had seen what the event grid was, correct? When we had set up the event trigger for Azure Blob Storage at the data pipeline. So while configuring the event trigger for Blob event, an event grid got created in the Azure PaaS, which sends the events. So you have Azure Event Grid, you have Azure Event Hub, then you have IoT Hub, and you can read, correct? It pulls data from your Azure IoT Hub that captures data from IoT devices. You have service bus. Then you have databases like Azure SQL DB, Azure SQL Managed SQL MI, Managed Instance Database, and Azure Cosmos Database. You have also PostgreSQL database, but here you have something called as CDC, and you have SQL Server on VM, but you have something called as CDC stated here. What does CDC stand for? Any guess?
Change data
Change
capture.
data capture.
Perfect. Change data capture. Now, imagine that, as I stated, correct, Azure SQL database or Azure Cosmos database is a global NoSQL database, meaning it's a globally distributed database that is majorly used for heavily dependent UI interfaces like Amazon, etc. So there, the data is happening that Azure SQL database are like your transactional databases. So there are heavy transactions that are happening throughout the day in case of sources like Amazon, Swiggy, Zomato, correct? So imagine that I want to copy the data from my Azure SQL database into my Fabric ecosystem. Or let's ignore Fabric for now. Let's state that I want to copy that data from Azure SQL database to some destination. Now, if you remember, we had discussed two concepts called full data and delta data while discussing the concept of data pipeline. Full data meaning copying the entirety of the data from the source into the destination, irrespective of whether there has been any change in the data or not. Whereas delta data is copying the differential data between the last time that I had synced the data to the changes that are occurred after that till now. Now imagine that if my table has millions of records, copying that millions of records every time is a waste on the time as well as the resources. So for that aspect, it is better to have delta changes present. So basically within the databases within Azure or IaaS, Microsoft provides a change data capture functionality wherein you can enable that functionality at the database layer. If you enable that, then any changes that are happening can be configured as an event to the corresponding destination via certain event related sources, and you can capture that data in a delta aspect. Now the question would come, why would one use an event source rather than using mirroring concept? Because in case of Azure SQL database, there was a concept of mirroring, correct? That used to synchronize the data automatically within the Fabric ecosystem. So any change that transpired at the source would automatically get synchronized here as well. If that is the case, then why is there need of real-time streaming aspect here? That we'll take a look. This has its own benefits as well, and there is no explicit need. There is no major significance of having real-time streaming with respect to Azure SQL database, Azure SQL MI, Azure Cosmos DB, or Postgre or SQL Server, because there is also concept of mirroring that provides data in real time itself. But that is also one of the feature or functionality that has been added here. Why? I'll come later. But these functionalities like Azure Event Grid, IoT, Azure Data Explorer, or Azure Event Hub, these are not present. Now, these are database related aspects like MySQL database. Then there are Azure events like Azure Blob events. Then there are fabric events that can be captured, like OneLake job events and fabric workspace item events that we had taken a look with respect to data pipeline trigger. Now there's some sample data that generates, there are some sample scenarios that generates the streaming data, and then there is a public feed which provides us real-time weather data. So now for this demo purpose, I'll proceed with the sample scenarios. So now let me create a sample scenario with respect to the stock market. So for that, let me connect to that source. Now my source is stock market. But if you all remember, in order to capture the source data, streaming data, in the Fabric side, we have something called as event stream that we had taken a look while creating the data trigger aspect, or the data pipeline trigger aspect. So for that, I need to create a corresponding event stream within my workspace in order to capture the streaming data for me. So it is stock market event stream. So now my source name is stock market and the source type is stock market streaming data, sample data. And I have, for that, it is correspondingly configured in this workspace corresponding to this event stream. So now the event stream is getting generated post that, because in order for me to get the event stream source, I need to have the event stream created first. So now if I go back to my workspace, I'll see that an event stream has been created. Now let me go and take a look within the event stream. Now here I can see that this is my source, stock market. And this is the detail that it's a sample data and it's active. Now under data preview, you can check that the last time is 8:21 and the data here is with respect to market data and time is 2:50 to 58:96. Correct. Now if I refresh this, it was 8:96. Now the time has changed. So basically this is an event data that is getting generated. It's a streaming data that is getting generated. Now, as of now, this is my source. I want to copy the streaming data into some destination. So for that, under destination, as of now, it's blank. Correct. Now, there are two ways how I can set up. You all can see an edit functionality here. I can either click on edit here, or I can change the mode from live to edit mode here. It's one and the same. So let's take a look. So if I click on live, from live to edit, it takes me to this route. Now I can go back to live, which is read only mode. Now in case if I click on edit, it also takes me to the same aspect. For now, let's go to live mode. Now let me go to the other way. Now imagine that there is what I mean is, in the data storage aspect that we had taken a look, store data. We had taken a look with respect to all aspects other than data mart, because as I said, data mart is gonna get deprecated. So there is no need of discussing that aspect. You have something called as event house for rapidly loading structured, unstructured, and streaming data for querying purposes. Correct. So now let me create an event house. First. Now in the event house, you can see that this provides me a detailed description of what my event house has. As of now, there is no, since I do not have any data, everything is zero. There are no activities, nothing is happening within this event house. Now within the event house, I can create databases. Now by default, a default KQL database is created pertaining to the event house name, but I can create multiple new KQL databases. KQL stands for Kusto Query Language. It's somewhat similar to SQL, but it has its own set of syntax and keywords that one has to leverage. Kusto Query Language is in order to query such streaming data aspects. Now, the KQL database is basically a Fabric version of your Azure Data Explorer database. Now, within this database, as of now, I have a default KQL database got created, correct? Remember, I can create more KQL databases and I can define if it does define the type. Now, within this KQL database, if I click on new, I can manually create some tables or one-click shortcuts, or I can get data within this KQL database. So when I click on get data, I can get data within this KQL database via OneLake, Azure Storage, Events Hub, Amazon S3, data pipeline, because as I said, correct, KQL database is to load streaming data and structured data as well, and semi-structured data as well. But the main use case that we all usually leverage it is for streaming data purposes. So for that, now let me get the data within this KQL database via an event stream. Rather than creating a new event stream, let me use an existing event stream itself. The existing event stream that I had created. Now within this, let me create a new table in which I want to load that data. So it was stock market KQL. Now this is the table that I want to create within my KQL database. But from where do I want to load the data? Meaning which event stream? I might have multiple event streams throughout multiple workspaces. Correct. So for now, let me select the event stream that I created now. So now we will be taking the data from the event stream that we created recently within this workspace. So, okay, ignore the spelling mistake. the stock market event stream, correct? Now, if you see, continue will open in another time and you will be guided to the process event stream. So I do not want to do that for now. Now that would automatically create a connection. And you know, correct, the data connections that get created within the Fabric ecosystem. So now what we have done is within the KQL database, now I am stating that you need to get the data from an event stream, which is from this workspace. For that, I created the corresponding connection, or I am creating a corresponding connection, and it needs to load the data into a new table within the KQL database called stock market KQL. Now, what this is doing is it is actually creating the corresponding aspect or creating the corresponding flow of data. And this does take a couple of minutes depending upon the network and bandwidth. So now finish. So this created the table. Now it is mapping the event stream to the corresponding table, creating the connection, and now loading the corresponding aspect. So now if you see within my KQL database, I can see that a table got created called stock market KQL. As of now, there is no data because it does take time for the first set of stream to start loading in. So any queries up till now? Let's take a look back on this after a couple of minutes. But now if you see here, earlier there was no activity, correct? But now I can see that there are certain aspects that are present here, like 0 rows. As of now, there are no rows been ingested, correct? It would get after a couple of minutes. Then in the system overview, which is the overall event house that can contain n number of KQL databases, I can see that there have been certain activities, and that activity has been by Nandan Hegde. This is the database. This is the table and what action was created in the last 7 days. So it was a create action via this user whose front name or his display name is Nandan Hegde itself. So this provides you with respect to the overall event house aspect, and this provides you database specific aspect. Now, if you see here, 2.8K rows have been ingested now. If I go to tables, under that, if I go to stock market tables, I can see that these are the rows that have been inserted. And since it's a streaming data, since its data is getting generated from the source, sample source, now from 2.8, it increased to 3.8, 4.4. Since it's a streaming data, the data via event stream is getting ingested into the event house KQL database in a streaming manner. Any queries? Was there any code that I had to do? I just had to configure certain source and destination, and automatically all my streaming data is being loaded within my Fabric ecosystem. Now, let me refresh here. This is the event stream, correct? But now if you see, within the event stream, a destination has been added. And this destination is equivalent to the connection name that got created with respect to the event house that we recently created. So either you can add the destination from here itself via edit mode, or you can explicitly add it from the corresponding sources via which you want to get the data. And it would automatically get synchronized into the event stream framework. In case if I deactivate all, it means it would stop generating the streaming data and it will stop loading the streaming data into the corresponding destination. Now, let's take a look with respect to certain aspects here. First here, there is an option called view files. Let me click on view files. Data availability is one lake. In one lake is currently inactive. If you remember the concept of view files in the lakehouse, what does the view files in the lakehouse signify? Basically, in case if your underlying data is in the form of delta parquet, then it provides you view file shows you the underlying delta parquet data. But if you remember our initial discussion when we had discussed the concept of Parquet files in detail, we had stated that KQL database has its own proprietary storage format, meaning we do not know how the data is being preserved in the KQL database. If that is the case, then why do I have this option of view files? Because there is an option at the database, overall database level called OneLake availability, which is currently off. You can turn it on. In case if you turn it on, what would happen is all the tables within this corresponding database would become available in the OneLake in the form of Delta Parquet file. But I do have the flexibility to make the OneLake data availability based on specific set of tables itself. Like I can select this specific table and make the OneLake availability for specific table itself rather than the entire database. So now what I've done is I have enabled the OneLake aspect of the corresponding table, stock market table. Now, in case if I go and click on view files, I can see that the Delta log folder has been created and now it has got created. Does it mean that it would start capturing the aspects from now? What about the original data that has already been captured? Yes, but it would take some time for the all the existing data to be converted into the OneLake equivalent, that is the Delta Parquet file itself. First, the log file gets generated, and then eventually, because it needs to have correct what are the different aspects, and then eventually all the data would also get converted into the corresponding Parquet aspect itself for the data to be available within the OneLake. And then in case if the data becomes available in the OneLake, meaning, let me take one step back with this one. So with this OneLake availability functionality, what we are basically doing is we are creating a logical copy of this KQL database that is present within this event house. And turning on this feature of OneLake availability means that one can query the data in your KQL database in the Delta Lake format via other query fabric engines such as Direct Lake Mode in Power BI, Warehouse, Lakehouse, Notebook, etc. Since it has created a OneLake equivalent aspect. So one can turn the OneLake availability at the database level or the table level. But there are certain restrictions with respect to that. Once you turn on the OneLake availability, you cannot do some set of tasks. But before that, let me go to the workspace level. Now, if you see, when we created an event house got created, and corresponding to that, a KQL database and a KQL query set got created. Now, let me go and take a look with respect to the view files. Now, imagine that if I want to rename my table, correct? Unfortunately, table renaming is not supported when there is an active OneLake connection. Meaning, in case if I turn the OneLake availability on, I cannot rename the tables. Unfortunately, I even cannot alter the schemas. You can see correct here. There's an option to edit the schema. I cannot even edit the schemas. I cannot apply row level security to the tables. Or even the data cannot be deleted, truncated, or purged within this. So imagine that if I want to do any of these tasks, correct? Like imagine I want to rename the table. What should I do then? Any idea? Any guess? Should I go ahead and create a new table and delete this table? Then what about the historical data? Any thoughts?
No idea.
Just guess. What can you do? How can you manage? And answer is simple.
Clone.
Turn it off. Make the changes. Now I can rename it. Rename it. And then again turn back the functionality. This would automatically then resynchronize everything into the one lake. Unfortunately, it's a long route, not an easy route, but that's the only way. That's the only easy way of managing it. Any queries? Now, if you see the corresponding KQL database, correct, can be leveraged for shortcut. And within that, I can select the stock market KQL. Now, I do have another event house. Here, if I select the corresponding tables, I am not able to see any table. Let's understand why. So let's state that if I turn the one link availability off, it purges the corresponding data that has been available in the one link. So in that case, now in case if I go and try to create a new shortcut, one link, under tables, it takes some time to purge the data, correct? As of now, there is no data available, unfortunately, because it's still synchronizing, because I have turned it on and off multiple times. It does take to synchronize that much amount of data, correct, into Parquet. But, okay, let me create a new table afterwards, correct? Let me add another source to another table within this, and then we'll take a look on how that functionality works. So now, within the KQL database, you have aspects with respect to, I can create new database. I can refer under database aspects. I can create tables, views, functions, etc. In case if I want to create a new table, I can create the corresponding descriptions or auto schema aspect that we'll take a look eventually. Or I can query it via notebook. But there is some, and one lake availability is what we saw. Now, I can use something called as event house POC query set. What is this? Basically, I can query whatever data is in the tables via something called as the Kusto query language, the KQL language. Now, it's somewhat of the syntax, meaning this is my table name, correct? Imagine that if I want to query the top 100 records from the table, in normal SQL aspect, what we do is we write select top 100 from the table name. The equivalent of the SQL query is this Kusto query. wherein I can state the table name, that is stock market QL, and execute this. This would provide me the top 100 records, or it would provide me the 100 records. Take is like get the 100 records. Now, in case if I want to get the count of records within the table, count. Now that these count take are keywords. As of now, there are 30,900 records. If I expand this, I'll be able to see the corresponding aspects within the JSON output. Now, if I execute this query, this provides me, as we stated, the number of ingestions per hour in the given table. This is the time, and total ingestion count has been 32,000. Now you can even filter out the data, correct? Correct. Wherein add the pipeline, where, and then you can add, where is like your filter aspect. So there are the ones that are highlighted in red are the keywords, similar to how we have keywords in the SQL. Now, I won't go in detail with respect to the KQL syntaxes and other aspects, correct? That you all can take a look in your named spare time. And of course, I am also not an expert. I also use ChatGPT and Google itself to get this syntax for the same. I even use it for SQL because SQL is that vast, correct? So KQL documentation is readily available in the Google with all its corresponding syntaxes. So let's not worry about KQL here, but let's understand other functionalities within this event house. So now when I executed this query, there is something called as I can copy this query and its corresponding results, etc. These are normal aspects that are even available at SSMS level. Then there are KQL tools, whether I want to duplicate this or I want to open another command prompt. I can export this underlying data to CSV, or I can pin this data to a dashboard, or I can create a Power BI report directly from here itself based on this query output, or I can set up an alert rule. Let's take a look with respect to that. Now I want to pin this to a dashboard, or meaning a dashboard is like, okay. So those who are not familiar with Power BI, in Power BI, there is something called as report. Report is where I can go and take a look with respect to my individual reporting analytics, wherein I can have multiple visuals and I can go across and see the data. Now imagine that I have 5 to 6 different reports, correct? But as meaning, as an organization, I have one report that contains list of the users who have joined in my bootcamp and how much amount that they have paid. Or let's take other way. I have a list of users and their corresponding PII data, like their age, their gender, their email, etc. I have another report that contains my financial aspect. See, in order for me to set up these sessions, I do have to buy some licenses, correct? Like Teams license, etc., etc. So I do have some expense, and I am also generating some revenue with this aspect. So I have a financial dashboard. Then I have my planning dashboard. How do I want to conduct future sessions? So I have three different reports that some of my users within my organization have created. But as the executive of this organization, I don't have the patience nor the time to go and take a look across each and every report. I want some key KPIs. Like I want the overall head count to the number of boot camps they have attended. Meaning, imagine there can be resources who have attended multiple of my boot camps, correct? So I want the user, the number of boot camps he has attended as one visual for my reporting so that I can then understand. Then I have a feedback report. I want which training has garnered the maximum feedback and what are the areas of improvement. And then the revenue per bootcamp. I want this in a single visual or a single page for me to take a quick decision rather than going across each and every report. So for that, there is something called as a dashboard. A dashboard is the place wherein you can club or pin visuals from multiple reports into a single unified page. So in this case, I am creating a new dashboard since I do not have a dashboard. Let the dashboard name be Event House Dash. And within that, I want to create a specific tile. Tile meaning a specific visual within that entire dashboard. So now let me create a tile called table stock table. Let me create it. So now basically it created a corresponding visual of the data. So now, though I wanted the entire data, but I'm only able to see the count because, okay, this is what I had queried with respect to. Now, in case if I execute this, and if I want to pin this to the dashboard, I have an existing dashboard, correct? What is the existing dashboard name? EVH dash. And there I want whatever, correct? So now, because it was this query that I had selected, it goes and creates the corresponding output equivalent into the dashboard. So now I was able to create a new dashboard and pin one of the visual in the existing dashboard itself. So now this states me that overall count is 45,000, which was earlier less than 46. So now I am able to visualize my streaming data in a real-time analytical aspect itself. But the question begs is, when I created the tile, it automatically created its own type of visual. For this, it created a table visual. This also it created a table visual. I do want to change the type of visualization that it is creating. Is it possible? Of course, I can even download this file, correct? Is that possible to change? The answer is yes. As of now, I am in viewing mode. I can edit it. So when I edit it, I can select the corresponding aspect that I want. I can even add new tiles and I can add other sources as well. I can add new pages within this dashboard as well if need be. Correct. But then my requirement is I want to change the visual type of this. So I can click on edit. If I click on edit, I can see that what query is exactly running behind this. Meaning this tile is getting data based on what query. I can leverage Copilot to make some changes. I can even add certain parameters with respect to start time, the range rather than the entire range of event data, streaming data, I want the data in last 15 minutes or 30 minutes, how many sales has happened in Amazon, etc. Correct. So now I can add a time range. I can leverage Copilot as well. But unfortunately, for Copilot to be available, I need to have a dedicated capacity that will take a look eventually in this weekend courses, in this weekend sessions. Now, I want to make changes with respect to the visual type. So rather than table, I want it to be a statistical visual, a stat visual like this. Text size, I can keep it large. I can make some changes with respect to formatting. I can add conditional formatting, that is add rules. In case if this data is less than this, etc., etc. Similar to how we do in Power BI, visual aspects. And now I can click on apply changes. So now I can manage these aspects. I can even explore the underlying data via the KQL query itself. So this was not the best example for me to show. Explore the data. I can explore it here. I can check the underlying KQL, take the top 100 and identify the data rather than, meaning basically the KQL queries that is taking the top 100 aspect. I can change it from top 100 to other queries if I want the changes to be. And I can check within this symbol, there are 3 unique values. Within sectors, there are 3 unique values corresponding to the corresponding symbol associated. This is the minimum and maximum value, 0. Bid price. So I can get a data profiling with respect to here. I can filter out the specific columns that I do not need. I do not want these columns. I can filter them out. Remove them out. Filter is the wrong terminology to use here. I can remove those columns from here and automatically it would be removed from here as well. So this is how one can leverage the dashboard and do real-time analytics on top of the real-time streaming data. I can even create a Power BI report. Pertaining to this aspect. And then finally, can you see here the Kusto query results, correct? The corresponding aspect that I need, I can select the specific visualization since it's sum, correct? Let me create a table for now, correct? It's sum of those two by sector, correct? I can rename the page. Then I can add text box. I can add shapes, buttons, etc. Correct? And then I can save this report as let's say test report. Now, the reason I am not able to the reason why I'm getting it as save it to a workspace, I'm not able to get this drop down. Can anyone guess? Does it mean that this report can only be created in my personal workspace and not in any other workspace? Any idea? Because my Power BI Pro license has expired at this account level. I have only Fabric license, and for me to publish reports, I need a Power BI Pro license at least, or a PPO license. Hence, I'm not able to select the workspace drop down. So for now, I'll go and proceed and create this report within my personal workspace. Under workspaces, my workspace, and I'll see that a report has been created. Ideally, remember, you can create your report in any workspace, but for that you need to have a Power BI Pro or a PPU license, and unfortunately, remember that my license expired. So now let me run this query again. Now I can even set up alerts on this query, wherein I can set up some conditional aspect that run this query every 5 minutes, check on each event and send me mail notification in case if something happens. Post that I can run a fabric item, etc. So this is the data activator that would get created in case if I set up an alert. Now I can see that this is the overall rows that has got ingested as of now. System overview is there is 47.6 KB of data. The original size is 896, but it has been compressed to 47.6 KB. There are total 61,000 rows as of now. So any queries on the concept of event house? Now there's something called as data policies with respect to retention aspect and caching, which we'll discuss later. So any queries with respect to whatever we discussed up till now? Yes or no?
Nandan, at the start when you were creating what was it like event house, right? Like the when you're connecting, so it was giving you multiple options like event hub, real time hub, right? At the start of the call.
Meaning the get data
Yeah,
aspect, correct?
correct, get data. Yeah. Okay, so and then there is a event stream, right? So
Correct.
I mean, when we should use what, like event stream, event hub, and real time hub?
See, as I said, correct, event house can load structured and semi-structured unstructured data as well, along with streaming data, correct? But the main advantage of having this is for streaming data aspect as well, as the name suggests, event house. So event stream acts as your intermittent bridge between your source to your event house database. But you can imagine that if you want to see, as of now, I'll come to this couple of minutes, correct? See, sometimes you do have to analyze the combination of data, correct? You have to join data. Now, if I do want to use some master data, correct, at that time I can get the data from Azure storage or some other aspects. For that, you need a connection and you can get the data from there. Clear? But ideally, in most of the cases, in streaming data, you visualize the data as is and try to avoid doing certain joins because that degrades the performance, meaning there's some latency between the data being available at the source to the analytical layer. Correct? So depending upon the requirement, one can get the necessary data accordingly. Clear?
Okay.
If you remember in the data flow Gen 2, there was Azure Data Explorer, there was KQL database as the sink. So you can write data here as well. But that would be somewhat, rather than streaming data, structured data.
Correct. Okay.
But here, I wanted to explain on the benefit of streaming, which is today's world, wherein in today's world, data, most of the data is real-time streaming itself. Correct. Now you can see the data has been increasing. But now up till now, okay. Remember this limitation, correct? It is because my license, Power BI Pro license is not there. Hence, I'm not able to create the report in any workspace, but you all can create it if you all have that Power BI Pro license trial version. Now, let me go to the original workspace. Yes. Now, let me go to the event stream. Up till now, this was my source. This was my destination. Correct. And this destination, I created it from the event house directly. But imagine I want to add it from here itself. So I can go to the edit mode. I can add a destination. I can even add this data into a lakehouse, the event data. So let me add it into a lakehouse. Now, for lakehouse, it is asking me which lakehouse I want to select. I want to select the POC lakehouse. If you remember, data flow staging lakehouse always gets created when we use data, when we create data flow gen 2, etc. But ideally, it is recommended we do not use it since it's internal aspect. Now, within this lakehouse, do I want to create it as a new table or load it in the existing table itself? So it's trying to fetch the number of tables that is present within that lakehouse. So for now, I'll say create a new one. Let's say stock LH. And this is the JSON format in which I'm receiving the data. This is with respect to what is the lakehouse, meaning the minimum rows to maximum duration on how much it can aspect. And I'll click on save. But then there is an error because I need to create a connection between my source to destination, correct? So now I have created this connection. Now I can go and publish this. So it does not mean that your event stream can copy the data into only one destination. You can copy the data into multiple destinations as per your need. Correct. It's not just two. You can imagine that as a data team, I want to provide my data to 3 different downstreams. So in that case, I can configure it to multiple downstreams. So this is configuring it to the lakehouse. Since it's an event data, it does take a couple of time for it to load it. Correct. Let me go and take a look in the lakehouse now. So within this, I have a lakehouse called POC Lake. So under the table section, if you see the table, stock table is yet to be created because it is still configuring here. It's still loading. Correct. It would take a couple of minutes for it to configure that. Okay. Once this becomes active, it means the table has been created and the synchronization would start. So any queries up till now? Now, one aspect that none of you all asked me was, we are loading the streaming data into the destination. But was I able to create or do any transformations on that data while loading it? Did I do any transformations while loading that streaming data? So now
No.
I can see that lakehouse
No.
has become active. In case if I refresh here, I'll be able to see that table called stock. After Okay, let's wait for a couple of time. So I didn't do any transformations, correct? It is as is data movement. And second aspect is, why am I getting the option here to deactivate, whereas I'm not getting the option here to deactivate? Any thoughts? I'll come to this aspect a little later, correct? But the question still remains, was I able to make any changes in the data? Up till now, no, correct? So based on your thought, do you think we can make any transformations at the streaming data? Is it doable? Yes या no तो बोलो at least.
Might be yes, Nandan. We can do transformation.
Yes.
The answer to that is yes, it is. So let's take a look. Either go from here or go from here, edit. Correct. Can you see there's an option called transform events? Basically, I can do some data filtrations. I can manage certain fields, meaning I can remove certain fields. Filtering meaning filter the number of rows. Manage field is only have those specific columns. I can group by that data, group by that column. I can write my own SQL code if need be. Correct. So now, in case if I check this data, I have a column called symbol. Correct. And remember, KQL is case sensitive. Let's take a look. Correct. KQL. Because it is case sensitive. That's one point that I forgot to state. So now I have a column called symbol, where symbol equal to NSFT. Correct. Now I want to do some data transformation. I can write my own SQL code if need be. Correct. Select all into output from stock where symbol equal to where symbol equal to NSFT, correct? NSFT. So, and then even I can test out this query. So based on simple SQL query from the event stream, okay, sorry, my fault. Simple SQL query, I can do the necessary transformations if there is a need. I'll save this. Now, since there is no source to this, correct? I selected the corresponding source. But then what setup is required? Of course, I need to copy the data into a destination, correct? So for that, let me add a destination. In this case, let me add an event house. Let me map this. And in the event house, let me select the event house in which I want to add. I want to select the event house POC database. I want to create a new one called SQL table and save. Now it is telling me a setup is required. You need to configure this operation or a data source. Okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I had not saved that query. My fault. Correct. So now I created one transformations via SQL query. I can also do other transformations. Let's say I want to if you can say I can join, if I have multiple streams here, correct? I can join on those multiple streams, correct? But then let me take a simple one since I do not have that. Let me use, I can also filter it, correct? Let me select the source. Click on edit here. Within edit, on which field do I want to filter? I want to filter on symbol. Symbol equal to, let's take another value. One was NSFT HBMZM equal to BMZM. A simple SQL query rather than SQL query. Now I'm doing it via the visual route itself. Again, let me add it to a destination. Let the destination in this case be a event house. I can even make it to the lake house if need be, correct? Let me map it to this destination. So now this became aspect. Now I have to provide which event house I need to map it to. KQL database. I want to create a new table. BMZM. Now, until and unless I publish this, this won't become active. So now I have published this. Correct. Let me maximize the size. So now it's loading, meaning it's becoming active as of now. So in an event stream data, I can do multiple set of transformations. And remember, there is no need of only one source. I can have multiple sources. If you saw, I can add multiple new sources as well. Correct. Like, and I can connect to data sources if need be. Data sources are like Azure Event Hub, Azure IoT, OneLake events as well. Correct. So I can have multiple sources. I can join those multiple event sources and load it in the destination as need be. Any queries? If you see the stock lakehouse table got created, the original one, and I can see that the data is getting, the data has been loading. So now it would take some time in the event house for those tables to get created. As of now, I can only see one table. The new tables would get created once I see that it has become active. So any queries up till now? Yes or no?
We can have multiple streams populating the same tables as well, right? Through joins or.
Okay, so when you say multiple streams, meaning let's say there is same schema, correct? Yes, you can do a union, meaning let's say I have stream 1, stream 2, I can then join those, meaning append, and then I can load it into a single destination. As I said, there can be multiple sources. You can do multiple set of transformations and you can load it into multiple sources or into a single source. It's up to you.
Okay.
Now my question comes is, this destination is also an event house. This is still loading, correct? This destination is also an event house. Why do I have an option to deactivate in these destinations, but I do not have an option to deactivate here? Any thoughts? And now if you see, I got an option to deactivate here as well. Deactivate here means do not load it into this destination. Deactivate all means it will deactivate all the source and the sync data generation as well. Why do I have activate and deactivate option here but not here? Any thoughts? It is because these destinations were configured from the edit property in the event stream itself. Whereas this destination was added via the event house route, meaning I right clicked on the database and get data, and that from here I linked the event stream. Hence, I do not have the option to deactivate it from here. Clear?
Okay.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
you have to configure it. So now the data, I can see that BMZM table is also getting populated. But if you see, it's only BMZM symbols only. And via SQL query, I can see that. Okay. I need to check why is it providing me all the data and not the filtered data. SQL TB, I guess SQL TB was for SQL TB event house edit SQL TB. Okay, unfortunately, I didn't add the filter here. Meaning the earlier filter that I had added, correct, that got removed. But here also I can add the corresponding SQL query. I had not saved it. Hence, it is providing me the overall data. But imagine if I would have added var symbol equal to NSFT, it would have only kept NSFT rows itself. Now, let me try creating a shortcut now. One lake, POC lake. Okay, crap, sorry. To the KQL database, event house POC tables. You can see that even though I have 3 tables present here, it is only showing me 1 table. Any reason why? It's because I had not enabled the one lake availability at the database level, but at the table level. And this new table by default get created as off. Hence, in case if I want that to be present, I have to explicitly make it enabled on. So now in case if I try to create the shortcut after a couple of minutes, I'll be able to see the additional table, the new table as well, the BMZM table. So any queries on the concept of how to capture streaming data via event stream and load the data into the event house or lake house or any destination of the choice and manage real-time data analytics and ingestion? Yes or no?
No. No question.
No, no.
Now coming to the final aspect, that is within the corresponding event stream, under settings, there is a concept called retention and event throughput. Now, what is retention? Retention is basically how long the incoming event data is kept inside the event stream system before it's automatically deleted. The default retention period is 1 day and it can be maximum 90 days. So, in simple terms, if I have to state, imagine event stream is like your mailbox that stores your incoming messages. The retention period is how long the messages stay in the mailbox before they are cleared out. Now, why does it matter? Because longer retention period lets you reprocess or debug the recent data if need be. Imagine that there was some data that event data, there can be some capacity issue, something that might lead to the data not getting loaded into the destination. But that data is present. See, do you think the source stream would again regenerate that data? Meaning, do you think, imagine I was driving at a speed of more than 90 km/h and the limit is 75 km/h. So at that time, the IoT sensor captured it and sent the corresponding message. That message got captured in the event stream. But while loading from event stream into the destination event house, there was some failure. Now, because of that failure, but I want that data, should I go ahead and tell callback, Nandan, please drive again with 90 km, we want to recapture the failure that you did? No, correct? So at that time, the event stream does have that retention data from the source. So if I want to reprocess or debug that data, I can increase the retention period of, let's say, 15 days or I can have a 24 hours period as well. But remember, keeping data too long would in turn increase your resource usage or the cost. Else everyone would have kept a maximum retention, correct? Remember, there's storage also associated with that. And then comes the concept of schema, is basically to support multiple schema supports with event stream that I'll ignore. Then comes event throughput. It is the throughput level for this event stream ingress and egress. But remember, once the throughput level has been upgraded, it cannot be downgraded. Meaning, if I make it high, it cannot be made low. Throughput is basically the maximum speed at which events can be ingested into the system. So think of it like a what I can say, a water pipe. Throughput is how wide the pipe is, how much data can flow through every second. Now, why does it matter? Because higher throughput allows you to handle larger or faster event streams. So if your system needs more events than allowed, some data might be delayed or dropped based on the throughput aspect. So one can set up the throughput, since it's an event stream, correct? I do need to configure the retention that it preserves that event data and the throughput at which it passes the data. So this concludes real-time data movement within Fabric ecosystem or real-time analytics. Any queries?